Topeka City Council meeting will please come to order. If you would rise as you are able and give your attention to Councilwoman Ortiz for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we've had a lot of fires and we've had a lot of things go on with the city, whether it be death or just fires and different things that we've been faced with. But I still want to pray and ask that you join me in praying for those things, especially our firefighters and our police officers, for their safety and for our continued safety. Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we just come to you saying thank you. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for allowing us to even go through some of these trials and tribulations and keeping us safe out of all hurt, harm, and danger. Lord, we thank you for our city. We thank you for the jobs that are here. We thank you for the jobs that are coming our way. And we thank you for the unemployment rate that has gone down. We thank you for the youth summer jobs. We just say thank you. We thank you for the development on downtown. We thank you for this being the year of the streets. And Lord, we thank you for the money that we have been allowed to have those things get done. We thank you for the citizens, and we ask that you wrap your arms around our firefighters in their special time of need, and also wrap your arms around the police officers as they go through the trials and tribulations of every day. Lord, I ask a special blessing on this city. I ask a special blessing on each and every person at the podium and under my voice. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, our first proclamation is recognizing the Drug Endangered Children Awareness Day. And with me is Jennifer Gassman, a case manager with Kansas Children's Service League here in Topeka. Whereas drug endangered children are at a higher risk for abuse and neglect, and whereas it is estimated that more than 79,000 Kansas children live in homes where alcohol or other drugs are abused, and it is estimated that over 4,000 Kansas infants are born potentially exposed to substances every year. And whereas children whose parents or caregivers who use drugs are at a higher risk to use drugs themselves, whereas those in need of treatment who are either pregnant or already have children have a right to treatment options that support their role as a parent. And whereas the statewide Kansas Alliance for Drug Endangered Children, along with the Shawnee County Alliance for Drug Endangered Children, invite all residents of the city of Topeka to participate in Drug Endangered Children Awareness Day. Now therefore I, Larry Wolgass, Mayor of the city, do hereby proclaim the day of Wednesday, April 27th, 2016 as Drug Endangered Children Awareness Day. Jennifer, if you want to tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the Topeka City Council members for supporting local efforts to identify and protect Shawnee County children living in drug-endangered environments. Drug-exposed children impact our community in a number of ways, from the negative impact of medical, emotional, and educational problems these children often face, as well as the increased incidence of abuse and neglect in homes where substances are abused. The Shawnee County Alliance works to raise awareness of the problem, as well as programs to help families receive help with substance abuse and parenting. As part of Drug Endangered Children Awareness Day, we will be holding a press conference on April 15th at 1 o'clock at the Children's Discovery Center, and we'll be participating in the Save Kids Day at the Topeka Zoo the following day to raise awareness of the issue in our community. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Our next proclamation deals with Fair Housing Month. And with me are Commissioner Lorene Williams, Chair of the Human Rights Commission, Human Relations Commission, thank you. Terry Leatherman, who is the President CEO of the Housing and Credit Counseling Center, and Teresa Baker and Anna Hernandez, who work at the Counseling Center and deal primarily with rentals and people who have issues, correct? We have a proclamation here. Whereas April marks the anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which sought to eliminate discrimination in housing opportunities, and whereas the Fair Housing Act extends a further guarantee that all Americans, regardless of race, gender, color, nationality, religion, family status, or disability, receive equitable treatment in their pursuit of housing choices, and whereas illegal barriers to equal opportunity in housing, no matter how subtle, diminish the rights of all. And now therefore be it resolved that in the pursuit of the shared goal and responsibilities of providing equal housing opportunities for all men and women, I, Larry Wolgast, Mayor of the City, do hereby proclaim April 2016 as Fair Housing Month. And this is significant. It's important. We recognize the work that you do. Thank you very much. There are no presentations this evening, so we will proceed with the roll call.
Mayor Wolgast.
Here.
Council members Hiller. Here. Clear. Here. Ortiz. Here. Shum.
Here.
De La Isla. Here. Jensen.
Present.
Schwartz. Here. Cohen.
Here.
And Harmon.
Councilman Harmon will be joining us shortly. He was held up due to some business engagements. There are no additions or deletions to the agenda this evening, and council members, we have 2 executive sessions scheduled. Then we'll proceed with the consent agenda.
A, our minutes of the regular meeting of April 5, 2016, and there's a list of open after midnight applications. Staff is recommending approval.
That is the consent agenda. Your wishes, Deputy Mayor Delisla. Moves to approve. Councilman Jensen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the consent agenda is approved as read. Proceeding to the action items, the first is ordinance on expenditures.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Jim Colson, allowing and approving city expenditures for the period of January 30 through February 26, 2016, and enumerating said expenditures therein.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This would approve city expenditures in the amount of $21,911,469.55.
Is there discussion, a motion? Deputy Mayor Delisla moves to approve. Councilman Jensen seconds. Any discussion? All in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the ordinance is approved. Item B, labor agreement.
B is approval of a 2-year labor agreement between the City of Topeka and the Water Division of ASME Council 72, Local 1294.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Jackie Russell, the Director of Human Resources, to come forward and present information on this and answer any questions that this body may have.
Okay.
Good
Ms.
evening,
Russell.
Mayor and council members. This evening before you is a tentative agreement for a 2-year agreement with our Water ASME bargaining unit. It has been ratified by the union membership. A very brief recap of what this agreement will cover is that it moves overtime to hours worked after 40 hours, which is more consistent with majority of our employee work groups. It adds a new classification of Utility System Worker 1 beginning in January of 2017. Changes our meal allowances to eliminate purchase orders with restaurants and add administrative efficiency. Provides for a 1-step increase for 2016 to those employees that meet minimum qualifications and satisfactory performance. And also an adjustment to pay grades 1 and 2. And then for 2017, there is a 2.85% across the board adjustment to the pay matrix. Additionally, there are increase in the funeral expenses from $5,000 to $7,500. And I'd stand for any questions.
Are there questions for Ms. Russell? Seeing none, thank you. And are there representatives of the AFSCME union here? You can just raise your hand. All right, there are. If you may speak, if you wish. May you address the council?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Clint Patty. I was a chief negotiator on behalf of AFSCME. I also have Pete Bobach here as well, the president. And we are pleased that this is before you and would ask for you to ratify this contract.
Thank you. Are there
Thank you.
questions? Councilwoman Ortiz?
How you doing, Clint?
I'm great. How are you?
Great.
Good.
The increase in the funeral expenses, is that just because expenses are just getting higher, or?
Twofold, I think. That and it's a little more consistent with the other contracts that we have across the city. I think they range anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, and this one kind of hit it right in the middle.
Okay, and that's why I was asking, because I seen some higher than this,
Yeah.
and so, okay.
That's true.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, your pleasure. Councilman Shum?
Move to approve.
It's been moved to approve.
Second.
Councilwoman Ortiz seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the labor agreement is approved. Item C, loaned executives.
C is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Jim Colson concerning department heads and assistance from employees of other governmental entities, amending City of Topeka Code Section 225090 and repealing the original section.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to ask Ms. Robertson to present.
Thank you, City Manager. I believe each of you has received a list of 4 options that were provided to you last week when this item was posted. The first option is the current language that's contained in the city code right now. The second option is the version that was provided to each of you at the last meeting. And it basically provides for approval by the governing body prior to the city manager signing any employment contract with the department director, but no approval being required for an employee who's retained through another governmental entity and remains employed by that entity. Option 3 tracks in line with option 2, the only differences being in subsection A, that there's language added in there about the fact that the manager must follow the normal HR process. And in subsection B, language is added to require prior notification for any employee who's retained through another governmental entity. And then finally, option 4 is basically some language that I drew from comments made by Councilmember Clear that would just state employment contracts, whether with a department director, even if that person is serving as an acting department director from another governmental entity, they would all require approval by the governing body.
Okay, it is open for discussion or your wishes. Councilwoman Claire?
To understand this and to discuss it, I need to back up. I need to figure out first, in the first memo we received, it was stated that Mr. Wayne was on loan as an interim employee. And then it was reported he was the interim fire chief. And then it was reported he was a consultant. So first I'd like to know exactly what was his title.
Mayor, Councilmember Blake.
City Manager.
Mr. Wayne has always been hired as the interim fire chief.
Okay. All right.
So the memo you sent out, 2.25.090, that says he's an interim employee, capacity not equivalent of department head.
He's an employee of the city of Goodyear, Councilmember Clear. That's, I guess.
No, doesn't answer my question. So, so you're saying he is the interim chief?
That's what he was retained as.
Okay. Then, if we go with number 4, which I've had calls that want me to vote with number 4, says designated as a department head, which is an interim chief is a department head, right? The department head is the chief.
He's a department head on an interim basis. He's still employed by the city of Goodyear. I think that's what's complicating the whole thing, is it's kind of caused all the confusion.
Well, I don't care what he is in Goodyear. I want to know what he is here,
He's serving as the interim fire chief here.
which is a department head. A chief is a head.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So it says designated as a department head, including any individual employed by another governmental entity to provide assistance on a short-term basis, blah, blah, blah. So my understanding from what I've read prior is our contract, is it with Wayne or the city of Goodyear?
Councilmember Clear, the contract is with the city of Goodyear.
So number 4 says nothing about having a contract with another city.
Yeah.
Where? It says a governmental entity to provide assistance on a short, that's an employee of another governmental entity, not a city.
I think that's an element. Yeah.
No. Okay, look, it says including any individual employed in another city. But we don't have the contract with the individual from another city. We have it with a city. So this wouldn't cover our situation now.
Correct. Councilmember Clear, that this is kind of a hybrid situation, which is why there was the confusion that existed. It could fall within the realm of an employment contract. It could fall less so within the realm of procurement. I think it's more likely an employment contract, so that's why we tried to include it in 2.25090 to address it somehow, as was requested through the settlement agreement.
Then I would want to add in there, including a contract with another city, exactly what happened in this situation. I don't want to leave that out of whatever we decide.
So Councilmember Clear, like replace a governmental entity with another municipality?
Well, I wouldn't replace, I would add it, including contracts with another entity, a city entity, or however, that's why I don't know how to word it for the contract, but that it covers exactly what has happened in this situation. Does that make sense?
So Councilmember Clear, if in subsection A, we stated, approval by the governing body shall be required prior to the city manager signing any employment contract with any individual or governmental entity designated as a department head. But that's, yeah, it doesn't. Including any individual employed by another governmental entity.
Or
city.
yeah.
City.
Or city.
Entity or city.
Okay.
Just adding those two words, entity or city.
Okay.
And then is employment contract, I'm just trying to cover our bases. Is that the same thing as a consultant? I mean, are we going to, sometime this going to come up and go, oh, sorry, it wasn't employment, it was a consultant?
Councilmember Clear, on that one, I can tell you, since this was a hybrid and it was kind of stuck in between and didn't fit clearly one way or the other, I always thought it fit more within the employment realm, so I had a lot of discussions with the procurement director, and he agreed with me and said we don't do those kinds of things through procurement. This would be something that should be addressed through 2.25. That's why we went that direction.
So does this cover a consultant?
I would not consider what Chief Wayne is doing as being a consultant.
No, does this number 4,
No, because procurement is addressed in a separate area of the code.
And are you saying a consultant would be in the area of procurement?
Correct, that'd be in
I think,
3.30.
so this is more the human resources side.
Correct.
The consultant is more in the procurement, purchase of services.
And that's why I included that sentence at the end, because I just didn't want there to be any further confusion. And when they entered into the settlement agreement, the lawsuit was dismissed without prejudice, and they had brought the lawsuit based on the procurement side, which I don't think this is procurement, but I just wanted to make sure if they refiled it, that we're not putting ourselves in the position of having to go through all of this again. So I wanted to clarify.
So to double check, this will cover, if this was in place when the situation came up with Mr. Wayne, we would have been asked our approval.
I believe so, because it says department director or anyone serving in that capacity that's retained through another governmental entity, and now we're adding the words or city.
Would this have also pertained to Mr. Gerber when he was hired as deputy city manager? Because it says department heads.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Claire, but I don't believe Mr. Gerber has a contract. This deals with employment contracts.
Okay.
So no, that wouldn't cover it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now we're talking about one amendment, but we're actually opening any of this up. We do not have a motion on the floor for anything to be amended to. So we want to pull together on this, but we can continue just open discussion if you would like. Councilman Jensen?
Thank you, Your Honor. Honestly, I'm a little nervous about wading into HR. That's not this body's role. You know, a good heads up is nice when we're doing some unique things, but ultimately getting into the nitty gritty of who is hired and that sort of thing, my understanding is that's not our job. Now, it is our job to hire the city manager, but past that, I don't necessarily know that we really need to be meddling with much more than that. You know, like I say, a good heads up, I think is nice, but actually making, you know, giving an approval on something like that, I don't necessarily think that's our role. With that, I will move to approve option 1 as indicated in our packet here.
Okay, and that is the way the ordinance is written?
Correct.
Correct? So,
No, that wouldn't change it.
so, well, I would assume you're moving the ordinance that is then on the agenda
That's correct, yes.
with,
Sorry.
and without any amendments as have been proposed?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
We have to do something so we can amend it,
There is
folks.
no, seeing no, okay, Deputy Mayor DeLisla seconds. So we have before us this ordinance as on the agenda. Councilwoman Claire.
Okay, then how do I amend to,
Then
okay.
you can, you
now I amend?
move to amend this ordinance by inserting option
city,
4 the way that you have had it rewritten. And City Attorney, would you state specifically where that goes in the ordinance, the line numbers?
Mine aren't numbered,
Okay.
but it would
Mine
be,
is.
it would be in subsection A,
Right.
in the first sentence, and the first sentence would read, approval by the governing body shall be required prior to the city manager signing any employment contract with any individual designated as a department head, including any individual employed by another governmental entity or municipality to provide assistance on a short-term basis, or city, I'm sorry, or city to provide assistance on a short-term basis.
And that next sentence is there also, such contracts?
Correct. That would just be the first sentence.
And the B section there, that's under the amendment, the option,
There have been no changes to,
is that included as part of the amendment?
correct.
Okay. So if council members, you see we have A and B written on this page, of which is option 4, going into replacing section A in the ordinance.
that isn't what I wanted.
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
It doesn't read that. It would be including designated as department head, including with, like, any city, or including an individual employed by another governmental entity.
Okay,
2 things.
okay, we'll have to wait a minute.
Is that right?
Okay, okay, Councilman Clare had a question on it. Would you want to, or you were
Councilmember
the-
Claire, I'm not sure if we could enter into an employment.
But you did, I mean,
Let's
right?
see. Including any city or individual employed by another government. So you want city in front of,
Because isn't our agreement with the city?
yeah,
of
it is
Goodyear?
with the city of
That's
Goodyear.
what I'm trying to cover.
Okay. So it would say, approval by the governing body shall be required prior to the city manager signing any employment contract with any individual designated as a department head, including any city or any individual employed by another governmental entity to provide assistance on a short-term basis. Okay, got it. I had
Okay.
city in the wrong place.
and plus the next paragraph is also a part of the,
Right.
The
The
amendment.
next sentence would be such contract shall not be subject to the procurement ordinances, and then subsection B would talk about the severance. No severance or other payments beyond those authorized by state or federal law, city ordinance, or contract shall be made to a current or a former employee without prior authorization by the governing body.
okay, council members, just so make sure we all understand what the proponent is. Yes, Councilman Shum.
Thank you, guys. I know we're in the weeds here, but one of the dangers we face is unintended consequences, and I think that's why Councilwoman Clear is trying so hard to get this ironed out as to exactly what she wants it to say. I'm not convinced that the language that we're talking about, even now, does what Councilwoman Clear is asking for. Councilwoman Clear, I would suggest that perhaps we consider, if this is what you want to do, putting the words "or city" before the words, putting the words "with any city or individual designated as department head." Because, again, you're trying to clear up contracts that are made with another city. If we don't put that word there right in front of the contract language, I'm afraid it still is confusing about whether you're referring to a contract with an individual or a contract with a city. So again,
Is
that would
that-
be subsection A, line 1, signing, reads, approval by the governing body shall be required prior to the city manager signing any employment contract with, then I would suggest you insert the words, a city or any individual designated as a department head. But again, this is why we're ironing it out, and maybe that confuses the matter more.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilwoman Clare, I'm confused as to why you think we need to add the extra step to this. Would you explain?
Because that's what happened with Mr. Wayne.
Outside of what's happened in the past, I'm not understanding why we would need to make a decision on something like this. I do agree in that we need to be aware that this is happening, but I still don't understand why you feel we need to make a call before these are executed.
Because 50 people called and told me that that was what they wanted, and that's what my constituents are wanting, and I agree.
So you want to have governance over these contracts just because a bunch of people called you?
Yes.
Okay. I do not agree that that's a good idea for the record, but I appreciate your honesty.
City Clerk, was there a second to the amendment? Okay, did you second it? Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure.
We have a second.
The amendment.
No, not the amendment.
No, she seconded the first, but we then,
I didn't hear one.
okay, all right, we need to have a second for this amendment. I'm sorry. Councilman Schwartz seconds, all right, thank you. Councilman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't support the amendment, and I'll explain. I think you always get in trouble when you try and do overall legislation to deal with one incident. And I think we need to back up first, which we did a little bit last time, and say, is it broke? Do we need to fix it? And if something went wrong, what went wrong? And what went wrong, as I observed it, was two things. One was was the fact that was communication. Was the council feeling like they knew up front that it was happening and that they knew the details at the time that the deal was closed, so that the council was prepared. This normally is not important because that we hire the city manager to do the hiring and promotion and creating the positions and all that. The reason it was important, though, was because we were bypassing, or the city manager was bypassing normal hiring or procurement procedures. And to me, I think that needs to happen from time to time, but because we do have standard procedures and because of transparency and communication, that drives it being important to have, I'm not sure there's any way around the council just being alerted up front that this is a consideration and saying that's okay, and then being alerted in a timely manner what's been settled. Because what went wrong was that people didn't understand and trust that, in fact, the city manager had been very diligent in terms of how he looked and how many people he talked to and so on. So I think, and I handed out a proposal last time that did not make this packet. I tweaked a couple words in it based on the changes that the city attorney made. But I think if we're going to do this, we need to step back and say, all right, if the problem is skipping standard procedures, let's address that. And really, if there were to be a contract, it could be with an individual, it could be with a governmental unit, it could be with a private company, a loaned exec in that way. And I've talked about it with Lisa, maybe that would be procurement, maybe it wouldn't be. But if what we want to do is make sure that to protect our city manager as much as anything else, that if the city manager is going to skip normal procedures, that city manager is protected by letting the governing body know first and getting an okay, and then letting them know in a timely manner. I simplified it down to language that would just say, approval by the governing body shall be required prior to the city manager signing any employment contract that does not follow the Department of Human Resources process for recruitment and selection, period. So it could be at any level of government, which again is to protect our city manager, not to tie his hands, as I see it. And then whatever that contract would be, if it's not through normal recruitment and procedures, just let the council know. And then the second B is the same as in all the other proposals. I just think it's tough when you try and anticipate exactly, legislate to one circumstance that might never happen again. So I think, I'm not sure whether I can propose that at this point, but when the table has cleared so that I could, I would.
Yeah, I think we can only deal with one amendment
Right.
at a time, so we have to vote up or down on this amendment.
Right.
Is there any other discussion on the proposed amendment? Councilwoman Schwartz?
Thank you, Your Honor. Lisa, which of these, with what Sandra's added, and I'm not quite understanding, which requires the most communication with the governing body about the hiring of a department head, interim chief, or whatever? Was it the one that she is proposing and then added language to even make it stronger? So that requires the most communication with the governing body on department heads?
Councilmember Schwartz, I think that option 4 probably would, just because it requires approval by the governing body. So there'd have to be some kind of level, but it does not require a notification X number of days prior to something occurring, prior to you considering the employment contract.
But it would still require approval of the council to hire department heads or a contract
That's correct.
with an interim chief that's filling in as a department head.
No.
An employment contract.
Only contracts. We don't have contracts with the department heads.
Okay,
Any employment contract with a department head.
okay. Well, I'm going to pass something around because I found this last year, and one of them is an amendment to a proviso to the budget last year, and then the other one was what we had discussed with our evaluation process with Mr. Colson, and that communication is a problem, and we need to improve on communication. And that's why I think we need something in writing, in force, that says that the communication process will improve. So if you look at these two things, the first one, the proviso, which I offered last July 7th of 2015, said the city's governing body has the final hiring authority for all officers and employees, even though they, the mayor and city council, have delegated the initial hiring authority to the city manager. In order for the council to better understand and manage the organizational structure of the city of Topeka, the city manager shall review with the governing body all top managerial positions newly created or those to be filled from resignation or termination. These positions include department heads and non-union managerial positions who report directly to the department head. And then I go on to the basis that in the past year, many changes have been made with the leadership positions. Often the governing body is unaware of the changes until after that fact. Okay, and on. The other document was some improved communications suggested by the council. That was March 1st of 2015. Make the council aware as early as possible regarding any future issues that have potential to be publicly contentious, so that he can seek our thoughts when and how to open the issue for public discussion, and allows us the best opportunity to support his efforts and engage the public if in agreement with the issue. And then a little bit further down, the council should be aware immediately of any major change in city staffing. We have developed good rapport with many, and when their jobs change, we have no idea what happened to them. And then further on down, it would be helpful if all of us got the same information at more or less the same time. The system of telling some people things and talking one-on-one is well intended, but inevitably some people get left out of the information loop. That has turned out to be unfortunate in a number of situations, is counter to good communication and team building, and also puts the city manager and council at risk regarding serial communication. And then the last thing on there, when staff changes are planned that include people with whom the council or neighborhoods or constituents deal with regularly, please advise the council in advance. That's why I seconded Sandra's motion, and I would really like to see us improve communication. And it's like this was the third strike that we had, that we were not notified of what was going on, and we get calls about what happened. And so, Jim, I think you're doing a great job. I just think the communication needs to improve. And however we can put that into a council 12 years down the road, we don't know who's going to be here 8 years, 12 years, 15 years. So we get it right this time, and I think we should take the time to make sure that it's right and that communication improves. Thank you.
City Attorney, on the first statement here, I would like to have you address, because I think this city's governing body has a final hiring authority for officers and employees. I think that can be in contradiction with our charter.
Oh, Mayor, you're talking about this first paragraph. It says
Yes.
amendment or proviso to budget. I would say that could be, yes.
So I think it's an issue here pertaining to what is in the charter that may, if we want to go this way, we'd have to change the charter and look at the government.
But if we wanted to not, if the city manager hired somebody that we did not agree with, we hire the city manager, right?
That's right, right. Yeah, and that can be handled. But then I think also then some of that goes into an executive session, because it'd be a personnel issue that we were dealing with. Councilman Shum?
Mr. Mayor, the rest of the governing body, there are two different questions, I think, going on here tonight. One question is, are we trying to tell the city manager to communicate better with us? Or are we trying to tell the city manager that he needs our approval before entering into a contract? Those are two very, very different questions, and define which way we're going with this legislation. So we need to decide that basic question. Which question are we asking from the city manager? Approval from us to hire, or notification before he hires? And I stand for input.
Deputy Mayor Del Isla.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgast. I absolutely understand the concern that council has.
And I understand that there is a deep desire, not only from the council, but also from the community, to have more information with regards to hires and procedures. However, my concern is, and I will echo the sentiments of Councilwoman Hiller and of Councilman Jensen, as a governing body, our role is to hire the city manager and to, of course, establish policy for the city. The hiring of staff is up to the city manager. Now, circumstances do merit communication. I am not declining those statements whatsoever. The only thing that I would like for everybody to be very aware of and very cautious of is there's things that should be discussed because they're personnel matters. Personnel matters are handled as personnel matters. And if what we're looking for is for increased communication, it is not a policy issue. And it concerns me that although very well merited, the community has concerns and they're voicing them and we are listening. That's why we're having this discussion. We should not try to do policy because we're having a communication issue based on an incident, or like Councilwoman Schwartz said, a third strike like she's referring to. So I would just caution the body and just ask for us to sit back and consider, because I think that legally by charter, the CEO of the organization, which is the city manager, is the person in charge of hire and fire of the employees. Therefore, if what we want is communication, that is not something that we should govern as policy.
Councilwoman Claire.
But this is nothing new. There's an ordinance. We're not just all of a sudden jumping into some human resource. We already have the ordinance. So what makes this unique is going outside of the state. I think it made some of our firefighters feel like they weren't smart enough in-house for anyone to be an interim fire chief. This was not a normal human resource hiring. Therefore, I don't think we can treat it as such. We're not messing in hiring. This is abnormal. There's already an ordinance. We just need to, I think, tweak this for this situation. I do not want to tell him who to hire as a secretary. But this situation that upset the community, that upset the fire department, upset us, this needs to be dealt with.
Okay. Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't know that I would say it upset the community or the fire department. I didn't get any phone calls about this from constituents, and my understanding is the firefighters are thrilled to death to have him there, and they're enjoying the opportunity to work with somebody with an outside pair of eyes for the time he's there. We're looking at two different problems. We're trying to react to a situation in the past, and we're trying to craft something to help guide a future governing body and a future city manager through how it would happen again. I think we need to split these issues in two. If we want to address what happened in the past, I think that's a different discussion. Right now, we're trying to lay the groundwork for how a situation like this would be handled in the future, even if it has nothing to do with the fire service. I think what we need to focus on is how do we clarify that what we did was okay so that folks can understand, and if we need to put communication there, that's great. I wholeheartedly approve it. But designing a solution for something that happened in the past to try and predict the future, I struggle with that. I don't know that we can sit here and try to think through everything that could ever happen with the city and legislate a policy to handle that. I just don't think that's a reality.
Okay. Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was put into place. The reason why this was put into place is so what happened wouldn't happen. They had good faith in that, but it still happened. I mean, you can get around any law, you just got to figure it out. Mr. Jensen, you should give out your phone number on air. Actually, I'll do this. I'll give out your phone number because I laid in bed sick and all I heard was, you got to do something about this so this doesn't happen. The reason why we're here doing this is because of what happened. I've heard from the the firefighters would be crazy not to get along with this guy. This might be his boss, their boss. They have every intention to get along with him. They do like him. They like what they're hearing. They like what he's doing. They like what he's saying. But to come in and boycott him, come on. I agree we need to have something in place. I agree that the manager could have handled this better. I've talked to him briefly before we got disconnected, whether he hung up or I hung up, or maybe God hung up, I don't know. But you know what? I said this could have been avoided. It really could have. We wouldn't have to go through all this. So I do agree that something needs to be in place. That's why Mr. Akala remembered it, and that's why he moved forward with that lawsuit. We could have saved us all some time, some embarrassment. You know, I haven't met with the interim fire chief, but I have heard great things about him. I've heard things that he's done that no other fire chief has done where those guys are concerned. But I too, my phone rang off the wall. And you know, I've heard things from, we're giving him a checkbook and letting him write out whatever he wants. We don't want this to happen again. And I believe in my heart, and maybe I could be wrong, I believe in my heart that Jim had every good intention on bringing him in without going into this man's personal business that he'll lose this or he'll lose that. But at the end of the day, the past is what brought us to the present. We need to put some type of security in there. And I would hope that Jim would say, you know what, I'm gonna pass it by him. I think we probably would all have agreed if he would have brought it to the table. Just because you don't have to, but it's just the appearance of it. And I'm tired of dealing with this, so let's amend it, do it. I'm not trying to tell him who to hire. I'm not trying to do that. But I am concerned when we have told the firefighters that they cannot bring in people to work for time. They can't do that. We've changed that in the contract, but yet our city manager gets to bring somebody in and we pay him. It used to be our firefighters could pay for their time. But we've kind of contradicted ourselves. So I would like this amended. I would agree with it, with number 4, to make sure, and I'm sure there's another way around it, because one little thing changes the whole thing. But that's what I'm not trying to tell him how to do his job, but I will tell him, please communicate with us better. Put that on the record 3 times. Please communicate. What you think is not important, it is important. We get the calls. We get all of that. I do. And I was in bed for 2 months listening to it. You know it. You're probably glad I was out of there because I called you every time I got a call. I'll give him your number, Mr. Jensen. Expect some calls.
Okay, we have an amendment proposed before us to been moved and seconded. And I think for Councilman Harmon, we will bring you quickly up to date. We have, if you have that material there of the option 4 that has been amended. And between the city attorney and the city clerk, would you read what the amendment now states on the top of page 6 of that handout? I think it is. Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm using a different one.
Page 4.
Page 4.
Okay. So basically, Councilmember Harmon, I'm going down to the clean version. I think it'll be easier just so I can inform you where the words have been inserted. So subsection A would read, approval by the governing body shall be required prior to the city manager signing any employment contract with a city or any individual designated as a department head, including any city or individual employed by another governmental entity to provide assistance on a short-term basis. Such contract shall not be subject to the procurement ordinances. Subsection B would read, as it's written, no severance or other payments beyond those authorized by state or federal law, city ordinance, or contract shall be made to a current or former employee without prior authorization by the governing body.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other questions or discussion by the council? I'm sorry, Councilman Shum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa, that second reference that I heard to city, I think was repetitive and didn't add to the language you just read. If I could try to read back to you, you said that approval by the governing body shall be required prior to the city manager signing any employment contract with any city or individual designated as a department head. And then I think you said including any individual or city employed by another governmental entity?
You're correct. Actually, Councilmember Shum, that should be deleted. It should just be including the words a city or between the words with and any in the second line. So it would say signing any employment contract with a city or any individual designated. So those three words.
I think that was, yeah.
Okay.
And those changes are approved by, these are friendly changes that we are making. All right. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay.
You have a question?
I would make the changes that I just mentioned as a friendly amendment to Ms. Clear's amendment, if she'll have it. I'm still concerned that we haven't answered the basic question I asked a few minutes ago. Are we asking for the right to approve? Are we asking for notification? So at this point, I'm not ready to support this amendment or as a whole because I still feel that question's unanswered and we may be trying to answer a question we're not asking unless we are asking that. So as soon as we figure out whether we're asking to have approval over what the city manager does in these contracts or if we're asking for notification, then I'd know a little bit more what we're trying to do with this legislation, because right now this legislation indicates that we're asking for approval before the city manager does it, and I'm not convinced that as a body that's where we're at. Thank you.
And I would just say, I think that is the issue on which people are voting. Because this one states approval, and those who do not believe approval is necessary would vote against it, the way I interpret it.
Are you saying this one and the number 4?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, which is the amendment we're considering right now. Councilwoman Hiller?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just pointing out that what we are starting from is language that says there has to be council approval if an employment contract, all employment contracts with department heads or appointed officers or employees shall be approved by the city council prior to signature by the city manager. That's what we have today. That's what we've had for, I don't know, whatever it is, 20 years. So we already have that. And so if all we're wanting to do is adding in language about a contract with a city that would produce the same result, maybe we're still struggling with language, which also means it might be premature to vote on it.
Okay. Any discussion? Other discussion? Councilman Shum?
Thank you. And to Councilwoman Hiller's point, you're correct that we already have the language about the governing body approving department heads. That didn't...
Contracts.
Contracts.
Only
exactly.
employment contracts.
And that is exactly the point that, thank you. Because right now, we don't have employment contracts with department heads.
Right.
So repeating the same language for that, and I understand what we're trying to do is indicate the contract with any individual designated as a department head, but it is important to clear this up and for all of us to know exactly what we're voting on and why. So I appreciate that. It's that easy to stumble over what we're trying to do here. Thank you.
Councilman Clare?
That is what we have, and that did not work. We got caught off guard. That did not work in my situation. I don't know why you don't get calls. Maybe they don't believe you do anything about it. I don't know. I got the calls. I heard it did not work. I think we're asking for both, Council Member Shum. I think we want better communication, but we also want that I'm not sure what you are, but I think I am asking for both. You know, I think Councilmember Schwartz said it very well on the communication part. This is the second part.
Okay. Other discussion? Deputy Mayor DeLisa.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. I respectfully will not support the amendment. I feel that communication is the desired goal, at least on my behalf. I respect my colleagues having the desire to have the authority maybe to have say in the department heads hiring. However, I feel strongly that that is the role of the city manager. In addition to that, I just wanted to make some comments out for the public. Number one, for our firefighters, it's not a statement that was said that that's the case, but if anybody ever feels that this situation was made, that this hiring occurred because there was no firefighter that was good enough, I just want to clear out the air. I think our firefighters are amazing, but sometimes when you have a very specialized skill, which is what led us to all of this, our city is taking a look at AMBO services and looking at EMR and looking at the things that we're trying to accomplish and how we could better the services for our community. And in that process, what was being sought was an individual that had remarkable experience in this area. Furthermore, when you're making change in an organization, the wise thing to do when you're an interim, because it's constructive deconstruction, is to bring somebody that has no bone in the game in relationships, because it's very hard to do those things. So I want the community to understand why it happened. I want our firefighters to hear that. We respect what you do. And again, I wholeheartedly feel that, yes, there should have been better communication. Yes, things could have been avoided. I don't think that policy is the way of solving this, so I will respectfully not support this motion.
Okay, I think we're ready, approaching ready to vote. Councilman Shem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa, one of the things that as I'm looking over option 4 is it indicates any individual employed by another governmental entity to provide assistance on a short-term basis. We've been talking about how what you had didn't work. A short-term basis is a huge question mark. What is a short-term basis? Is it 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years? I'm not sure this amendment's ready for prime time until we as a council iron out exactly what we're trying to do on this. So at this point, I also would hesitate to support it. I have received calls on this. I did receive a call to support option 4, but it's not ready. It doesn't do what anybody's trying to make it do. If we pass it and it just says a short-term basis, then we start arguing next time about what a short-term basis was. Because to Councilmember Clear, it might be 2 months. To Councilman Jensen, it might be 4 months. And we're back to square one if we hire somebody from outside for 3 months or 1 month. It's just not ready, I'm sorry. I appreciate what you're trying to do, Councilwoman Clear, I do.
Councilman Cohen.
Thank you. I do too. I really appreciate what you're trying to do. Does the language really make the code clearer? And if it does, I think we need to support it. If we're not voting against it just to get back at the city manager for something, you know, I don't think that's logical either. But I mean, I'm just sitting here listening, and I mean, we have egg on our face. And it's pretty embarrassing that we're even having this conversation. I mean, it sounds like the code did sound like it would cover this, but, you know, anything can be maneuvered to whatever. But, you know, does voting yes mean we support what's happened? And I would say no, because we're getting this cleared up. But I think the obvious thing is I don't think we'd be here if there wasn't that perception that there was kind of I'm going to go hire my buddy from back home to fill this position. And I think that perception is really why we're in this position today. So what are we going to do now about rebuilding the public's trust? Because things were really going pretty good, I thought. And then we always seem to get egg on our face somehow. And I do think that is frustrating too. So as for mine, if we're just counting votes here, you know, I'll support it if it's going to clear this code up, but by no means does it mean approval for this situation.
Is there any other comments? I really think we should try to bring together, you know, summarize and vote, because we've been on this for about 40 minutes now. And we have a very extended agenda tonight, as you know.
Is there a time limit, Mr. Mayor, for our discussion?
No, but I can ask that we can,
Okay,
and
okay.
actually, we usually ask if anyone hasn't spoken, certainly we want them to speak, but
Well, I have a
but we
question.
then can bring it together, so we want to do that. Yes, Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you. I asked you to clarify, Lisa, the short-term basis, and you thought that was 60 days, but do you remember saying that? Where did you get that from?
Councilmember Ortiz, I threw out 6 months because
I mean,
that...
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months, because that's what was in that agreement. So I think you could replace short-term basis with 6 months.
Yes, Councilman Clare.
And I would like to add that on to the amendment. Short term is 6 months.
Okay, we have a friendly amendment to clarify the short-term basis to be 6 months. It's been a friendly amendment to the amendment. Councilwoman Hiller?
I'll keep it quick. I have concerns with naming 6 months as well. Short-term for unemployment could be 2 years, because we need somebody for a loaned exec for a period of time. It could be 2 months. I go back to policy writing and grant writing days. When in doubt, leave it out. And which is why I gave you option number 5, in that it doesn't say what position the person would have. It doesn't say how long. It just says if you're not going to use procedures, get approval first. And that's why, well, with all these different discussions, just to explain a little further. So again, I can't support it, but if people do want to pass something, I think we could come up with an option tonight or otherwise that is clean and simple. Thank you.
Other discussion? Seeing none, you have the amendment before you. All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no. I vote no.
We have 6 no, Clear, Ortiz, Schwartz, and Cohen voting yes.
6 having voted no, the amendment is defeated. We then have before us the original ordinance as proposed, that is a part of the agenda. Deputy Mayor DeLisa.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. I would like to request a motion for Councilwoman Hiller's amendment.
Okay, it's been moved. Councilman Hiller's amendment has been moved as an amendment. Is there a second? Brendan Jensen seconds. Would you want to, we've received a copy was distributed. And I think, do you have one? I think it's is that option 5, the top, option 5 tracking?
Correct.
All right. Would you want to speak to that briefly?
And it is tracked as the other options were against the original that's on the books now, not against the proposal that was in the resolution. So if you, since it's short, if I can just read what it would read when it was done.
Right.
It would say, A, approval by the governing body shall be required prior to the city manager signing any employment contract that does not follow the Department of Human Resources process for recruitment and selections, period. The second, as with all the others, would say no severance or other payments beyond those authorized by federal or state or federal law, city ordinance, or contract shall be made to a current or former employee without prior city council authorization. And for that section, it would simply leave the name of the section the same as it is today, approval of employment and severance agreements.
Okay, are there questions or discussion for this? Councilman Harmon?
Thank you. I don't seem to have a copy of option 5. Does anybody have an extra one?
Okay,
Looks
put it
like
in.
there is.
All right, is that an extra?
There's still one more if somebody's short.
There. Another one.
That is the same that was handed out last week.
Okay.
With the exception of a little change of the wording about the human resources process for what the city attorney did in number.
Okay, Councilman Harmon.
Thank you. Follow up to the city attorney. This doesn't reflect any reference to the procurement processes.
Councilmember Harmon, it does not, and it would be really nice to add that last sentence onto the end, if we could. The last sentence being, such contract shall not be subject to the procurement ordinances. To the
And
end of
that's-
subsection A.
Yeah, that sentence is in the previous, the one that we just considered in option 4.
Right, but it's not in option 5.
Does,
I can explain, and you can see what you think. I didn't put it in there because procurement process doesn't have anything to do with HR. That was what was discussed at the first place, so I wasn't sure it was necessary to say that, but I'm okay with saying that if people feel that that's best for clarity.
okay, do you want
So
Well,
to, Councilman Harmon?
thank you. The city attorney seems to believe that that's an important amendment, so would you allow a friendly amendment?
Would you allow that?
absolutely.
And the second? All right, so that is friendly amendment, we adding that sentence at the end as it is at the previous one. Councilman Shum?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. All right, I'd like to ask a quick clarifying question, perhaps of HR and perhaps of the city attorney. What would it take to change the Department of Human Resources process for recruitment and selections? Because quite honestly, if that doesn't come before the city council and the HR process changes, we could be right back to square one here. So I'm not sure that this does what we're trying to accomplish. Because to my knowledge, and I stand open for correction, we as a governing body do not review what the HR process is, do we?
Where is,
I don't think Jackie's
you're
here.
looking for the,
In response to the question of whether or not the governing body reviews human resources processes, there's no review of human resources processes by the governing body. Those processes are captured through administrative rules and regulations, which are reviewed by the city manager and approved by the human resources director.
Thank you very much. So if I could try to simplify it, we could pass this. The Department of Human Resources process could change. So what are we doing? I think I understand you're trying, when in doubt, leave it out. This situation is, if one side's to be believed, we can't leave anything out. We've got to define everything to a T. And on the other hand, we may just pass something that does nothing, and we'll just vented. We're venting tonight, let's be honest. We're venting about frustrations we have with what happened, and yet we don't really yet have a good idea how to fix it. Is my personal opinion in listening to the back and forth. We want something to change, but we're not quite sure how to change it. I honestly would be in favor at this point of serious consideration to tabling this until we know exactly as a council what we want to do. But again, I'm open to suggestions from other council members. I'm just concerned we're going to end up passing something with unintended consequences and something that doesn't do what we think it's going to do because we're upset.
is there other discussion?
I could try and
Councilwoman Hiller.
answer that. I think, in people's minds, the issue is, going back to Tammany Hall or whatever, we don't want graft and corruption in City Hall. We want to make sure that everybody's doing things on the up and up. And for the most part, it's a good discussion, but in today's world, and certainly in this city, there are all sorts of standard and best practices for hiring as well as procurement, and this city certainly ascribes to those policies, and it's unlikely that they would change. They could, but it's unlikely. And so the best I understood reading the old language, the original language that we have now, was that the intent was, we just want to make sure if anybody's going to go through a process other than our normal process, that there is an approval. And that's what happened this time, not exactly how that one was worded, but that's what happened. And if we do want to have that sort of, and again, I've supported this all along. I think it was a good idea, and I think Jim handled it fine, and we got a good result. But if we want to have an anti-corruption phrase, or whatever you would call it, in there, that we just, if somebody's going to go other than standard procedures, they need to check first, that's wise. That's wise for a city to have. And leaving it open. You don't know what the circumstances will be. You don't know how much notice. Generally, there's not a lot of notice, however, not enough time to go change your city normal policies and procedures. Could happen, but that's it. I'm open with however it goes.
Is there other discussion on the amendment? Councilman Clare.
I don't think this is about corruption, all that. I think this is about transparency. And I think that we have been tooting that since I came on. Transparency, and why we are backing away from that now, I don't know. And Councilmember Shum, I don't want to put this on hold again. I think I know what I want to do. I want the transparency. I want to know, my constituents to know I heard them. I want the community to know I didn't like this. I know exactly what I'm doing with this. But I do. I think it's about the transparency and letting everyone know what everyone's doing.
Is there other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we have before us the amendment proposed by Councilwoman Hiller, called option 5. Any questions about it? If not, all those in favor of the amendment, vote yes. I'm sorry, Councilman Ortiz.
City Attorney, why did you want that added to the end of that?
Councilmember Ortiz, the reason I wanted that added is because I don't think procurement pertains to employment, and I think that muddies the water. Plus, as I stated,
so that's just basically clarification. I understand.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Other questions? If not, all those in favor vote yes. Opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
We have 8 yes, Clear, and Shum voting no.
8 having voted yes, the amendment is passed. It would now be appropriate to have a motion to pass the ordinance as amended. Councilman Deputy Mayor De Lisra and Councilman Jensen seconds. Any discussion? Councilman Shum?
Thank you. Is this language that we're considering with this amendment that we just voted on any clearer? Is it any more limiting on the city manager? That's what I'm trying to understand. Or does it free it up for confusion in the future? And again, I understand the frustration. I appreciate Councilwoman Clear's what she wants to do. But my heartburn is not changed.
Okay. I would like to ask the city attorney, could you describe the purpose of this ordinance? Sort of the big picture. Why is this being brought before us?
Mayor, this was brought before us as initially due to our agreement through a settlement with the plaintiffs in a lawsuit who asked us to present alternatives to Section 2.25090 in return for their dismissal of a lawsuit. There was no request on their part that we adopt any such language. It could stay the same. It was just asked that we consider changes. That's why it's being brought.
And the reason also is the action that was taken is not really governed by any ordinance.
That's true. It was really a hybrid situation because we entered into a contract with another governmental entity for one of their employees. So it didn't fit neatly under employment or under procurement.
So that's why this is brought before us. And then we have an amendment that hopes to clarify it more. And I don't know how much more. I think that everybody has their own interpretation what that means. Deputy Mayor De Lisra.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. Councilman Shum, I would say that yes, it does, because I think that the desire of this body was, number one, first and foremost, I think that Councilmember Clear made it very strongly, she stated very strongly the fact that there was a desire for accountability. I don't think that there's more accountability than the discussion that we've had tonight. I don't think that there's any more accountability than not only the discussion, but the true intent of the body having this long, drug-out discussion on how to make this better so that it doesn't happen again. There has been a change made to the policy. And I think that from here on out, the other perceptions or desires for communication are issues that are completely apart that will and can be handled because now it is in writing. So it's not a perfect solution, but I think that that's the definition of compromise. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. City Attorney, you know, we've had so many amendments and we went from here to here. Can you please, for the people at home, and clarify the passing of what we're getting ready to vote on, what that will do?
Councilmember Ortiz, basically this option 5 that was submitted by Councilmember Hiller would require approval by the governing body for any employment contract to the extent that the city manager does not follow the routine practices engaged by the Human Resources Department.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Claire.
So by the Human Resource Department, do you mean when they hire anyone? Is the process the same for everyone, department head or city worker, or the process is the same no matter who you hire?
I'm not that familiar with them, but I would say yes, Councilmember Clear, that they're pretty standard, whereas you put out publication and request folks to apply. You get their applications in, you review them and do that first line review, and then you have folks in who you would like to interview, who you're most interested in, and then make a selection.
Okay. Councilmember Shum.
Thank you again. So my question then is, currently department heads do not have employment contracts.
That's absolutely accurate.
Currently, do department heads go through the HR process?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. They do.
I did.
Good. But they don't end up with an employment contract.
Correct.
So this language said that we would approve any employment contract for a department head that doesn't have an employment contract. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions or discussion on the ordinance? Seeing none, all those in favor of the ordinance as amended, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
We have 8 yes, Clear, and Shum voting no.
8 having voted yes, the ordinance passes as amended. Proceeding on then, we go to item D, the request for extension.
D is consideration of an extension of time for submission of a transient gas tax development agreement for Constitution Hall.
And on these, council members, we have the next 3 are all on the same issue. We had discussion on them last week. So in order, we have a very full agenda. We certainly can have all the discussion we want. We have some people signed up for public comment. But unless we have a lot of questions, these are asking for an extension. Maybe that we can just move on to that. City Manager, do you want to have the City Attorney introduce this to the extent that we need it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa?
Mayor, as you stated, these are requests for extension of 90 days each for Constitution Hall, Jayhawk Theater, and the Downtown Plaza, and I believe there are several folks in the audience who have signed up to speak to the extent the council has any additional questions.
All right. So we have before us, there are 3 different ordinances. The first pertains to Constitution Hall. We have that ordinance before us. Is there a discussion or is there a motion? Councilman Jensen.
Move to approve.
It's been moved to approve the resolution. Deputy Mayor DeLisla seconds. Is there discussion? Councilman Jensen.
Thank you. I would move to amend to make this a 180-day extension with the intent of it being a one-time extension, and I would like to see updates presented to the council via email or in person every 2 months.
Okay, it has been moved to make the deadline 180 days rather than 90, and a report back to the council every 2 months. Is there, okay, we have to have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, yeah, we will. Councilman Cohen seconds. Now it's open for discussion. The amendment is open for discussion, just the extension to 180 and the reporting.
Mayor?
Did you want to speak? Or?
I was just going to second Mayor.
Okay, good. Councilwoman Hiller.
If it's okay, I just wanted an affirmation from the Constitution Hall. Mr. Glenn is here to see if they still wanted to go with the 90 days or if they are interested in the 180.
Okay, is that appropriate for you?
Yes, and if I might indicate also, this would be a one-time extension. My idea is that rather than having them go 90 days and come back and ask again, this is all we're going to give you, so you have 6 months to get it done, and please come back every couple of months and keep us posted. That way, we're not doing this entire discussion again in 90 days if they need it.
Okay, so we could have Mr. Glenn respond on your thoughts on the 90 versus 180.
I think the amendment's well intended, and we can certainly comply with it, and there's a good reasonable chance that it might take more than 90 days. So no objection at all to it. Is the burden of reporting on both parties or on the applicant or on the city? I mean, it takes two to tango on this.
And I agree. We would just like to know how you're doing. A simple email to the council office would be, this is what's going on, this is our status update, nothing fancy.
All right, thanks.
Okay, and I think we'd probably let the staff determine
Absolutely,
that
yes.
process, what that process
We just would like
be,
it every couple of months.
A report of some type. Other discussion among the council members. Councilman Cohen.
Yeah, I just want to ask, I was on the TGD committee, being my first committee. It was, we had a whole lot of things come up this time. We got 20 or 30 applications for this money, and I think a lot of those were shovel-ready projects. And, yeah, I would support an extension, but it was my impression that these were the shovel-ready projects. That's why they were chosen. I can say I was kind of let down when they came forward asking for the extension, but I would support the extension, but I think that if they can't get it together by the end of the time period, we really need to give that money to somebody else that has a project ready to go.
Deputy Mayor DeLisla.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Councilwoman Schwartz, Mayor, if I may ask, since she was the chair of the Transit and Gas Tax Committee, I think that what we're missing here is that initially when the discussion occurred with regards to how the projects were going to be done, there was no restrictions on the funding. And I think that there was an expectation that there was going to be a significant amount of funding to help these processes continue. At that point in time, there was a lengthy discussion with regards to how this process was going to be handled, and the tables were turned on the grant recipients, requesting a different way of funding and different operating requirements that were not in the initial RFP that they were given. So having an understanding that things were changed, that the cash influx that they were expecting was not there, that they're having to do additional fundraising in order for them to get going, and that the expectation is that the funds are going to be received in a long-term process that is not going to help them get started like they were expecting to. That is the holdup that I think that we're facing. It's not so much that the parties that were ready to go were not ready. They were ready with the expectation that the monies were going to come in. Council changed after the fact and said, we're going to have different operating procedures and the funding is not going to come as you expected initially. Is that correct?
Thank you. All of the above. As I said last week, we're paving new ground here. We had worked with the Overland Station. This was the 1% that went to the Overland Station. We voted to extend the 1%. Then we decided we would grant it out like we had done the historical preservation grants. So we had an application process. We got a committee of experts from the community, from tourism, to decide on that, and then we're going forward. And so we're kind of paving new territory here and trying to figure out how to do that. These are shovel-ready. These entities have been in the process of construction for a long time. And so I think the way that we chose to divvy up the money for the next 12 years is the best way to go with this process. And if we need to give more than the 90-day extension, I don't have a problem with that either. I think in the 12 years, they will get the funding. They've had to come up with more money to be able to get this money. And so that process with banks and everyone else has taken some time. So I wholeheartedly support all of this.
Okay. Is there other discussion? Councilman Ortiz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do support the one-time extension, but I don't support them reporting back to us. I don't know what significance is it going to make, because they're going to have to come back in the time period, the 180 days anyway. So to know that, oh, we're doing bad, oh, we're doing good, oh, we're doing bad, or we're not going to get out there and help them anyway. So I really, really don't support that. I think they need to be concentrating on getting Constitutional Hall done, Grant. You know, not trying to figure out who am I supposed to report to. So we're going to have all that in 180 days. I don't think I need it every 2 months. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other discussion?
I might respond.
Councilman Jensen?
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Councilwoman Ortiz. The request for follow-up was just so that when constituents call us, we can tell them what's going on. There's always an issue with us knowing what's going on, so right out of the gate, if they know, they need to let us know. And we don't need formal presentations. All I'm asking for is a quick email. Things are great. We're on target. Boom, we're done. That's all I was asking for.
Okay. Is there other discussion? Councilman Ortiz?
I don't need that. I don't need that. I got enough emails. I got enough phone calls. I don't need that. When they're failing, what are we going to do? Oh boy, they're failing? That's for them to figure out. All I need is that report at the end of the 180 days.
Don't send any reports to Councilwoman Ortiz.
Please.
I just want to say how much I appreciate this process. It was even now we're talking about modeling it more on the structure of the Great Overland Station and Park contracts than we were 30 days ago, because it was new for everybody. I think the process of them being shovel-ready, but thinking that maybe the city wanted them to do everything right away and borrow money, whereas their original plans were to do fundraising and grant writing and step it out. I've been involved in some conversations where we've been able to refresh that. I think that just that misunderstanding got people stuck. I think the process of hammering out the Evel Knievel contract has worked some bugs that the grantees as well as possible bankers were a little concerned about. So it just took a little bit of time. I personally appreciate every one of them. We knew that the plaza was going to take time because it was starting.
Let's just stay with this one, because we got 3 more.
I'm not going to talk on the other ones, Mayor.
We got 2 more to go.
No, but I'm going to support all of them because I think it's fine.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you. Any other discussion? Your final?
Yes.
Final
so
comments.
I would slightly modify amendment to make the emails optional then.
Well, let's just,
Take them
if
out.
they don't have to read them, if they don't want them. Okay.
They don't want to do it.
Okay.
Take it out.
Is there any other discussion on the
I'll make a friendly amendment to take out communication.
Okay. If y'all don't want to know, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Who's the second? Who seconded the amendment? Sandra, do you want to agree? All right. We have a friendly amendment then to remove the reporting aspect of this amendment.
Friendly amendment means they just agree.
And that's fine. That's fine.
All right.
I'm happy to go email them myself.
Okay. 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 We're ready to vote now on the amendment to change to 180 days. Any discussion? Councilman Chum.
One time.
Thank you, Councilman Clear. That's what I wanted to clarify. If I understood Councilman Jensen correctly, if this is not all set in 180 days, the money is allocated elsewhere.
Okay, would the city clerk please read the amendment? Thank you.
The motion was to amend for a one-time 100-day extension.
Okay, thank you.
180.
Okay, is there any
No
other
reporting
discussion?
requirement.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes, Mr.
9.
Herman voting no.
9 having voted yes, the amendment is approved. To be appropriate to have a motion approving the ordinance as amended. Councilman Jensen?
So moved.
Is there a second? Deputy Mayor DeLisla has moved. Has seconded. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of the request for extension as amended, vote yes. Opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes, Mr. Harmon voting no.
9 having voted yes, the extension is passed. We go to action item E. The clerk would read.
E is consideration of an extension of time for submission of a transient guest tax development agreement for the downtown plaza.
Okay, are there any discussion items on this? Councilman Jensen?
I would move to approve.
It's been moved to approve the extension for the downtown plaza. Is there a second?
Were you done?
Okay, Councilman Schwartz seconds.
Okay.
Councilman Jensen?
So then I would move to extend it for a one-time extension to 180 days with no reporting requirement, same as before.
All right, is there a second? Councilman Schwartz seconds. Is there discussion? Do you have questions? We have 2 people signed that we certainly can have speak if they wish to. Vince Fry?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We appreciate that offer to extend, and we certainly hope that you will accept it. And what was the comment? Things are great, and we are on target if you allow this extension.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Fry? We also have signed, I'm sorry, Councilman Hiller.
I don't know if this is best for you or for Kurt, but in the case of the other 2 extensions, they've been working on their plans for a while. The plaza was brand new.
Correct.
So is the 180-day with no extensions enough time? I know you're looking at starting from nothing in terms of negotiating property and then developing plans and so on.
Sure. We will not have a completed plaza within 180 days, but we will certainly have everything that you had requested in that period of time.
That's good enough?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And what we're agreeing to is the agreement. By 180 days, we have an agreement with them to begin the process, to begin expending of funds to them. Any other questions? We also have signed to speak Kurt Young.
I'll defer to Vince.
All right. Unless there are other questions. Is there any other questions or discussion on the item? Okay, we're voting on the amendment to move to 180 days. Do you have a question?
Well, I had an interesting conversation just today about the plaza, and the person observed that there's been a lot of conversation about the Expo Center, and boy, it's in the wrong place. Whatever. Could it be better located? And that the group is working hard to make sure that the selection of the site is the right one. And in negotiating a purchase of land is tricky when you don't have that development. There's a lot of steps here. So I just was a little worried about, on this one, having the 180 days being absolute and non-negotiable. I think the council at the time can make that decision based on how much progress they've made. But I was just a little worried about it being absolute.
Okay. Any other discussion? Councilman Jensen?
So I would accept if you would make a friendly amendment to remove the one-time extension for them and just make it 180 days.
Well, that would be, your acceptance of a friendly amendment makes it happen. The council could still, at 180 days, say, sorry, you're just not making any progress at all, we're done. Just was a little worried about putting that stack in, so thank you.
So we have a friendly amendment to remove the requirement that there can be no extensions. Is that, we are agreement on that? All right. Any other discussion on the amendment to make the date 180 days from now? Councilman Shum.
Thank you. I support Councilman Jensen's original amendment. I think we're on dangerous water, considering we just passed Constitution Hall under those requirements. To change it for the larger project that costs more money, I don't see how that's viewed favorably, especially since they're agreeable to the fact that they can do it in 180 days. I believe that we should take Mr. Fry at his word. If he's able to have that agreement within 180 days and he feels confident, I would support the First Amendment without the friendly amendment, but I'll be voting no on how it currently stands. Not because I don't support giving them a 180-day extension, but I think it should be under the same terms as Constitution Hall.
Okay, understood. Is there other discussion? Councilman Jensen?
I'm not sure how to handle this in this case, then. It doesn't matter to me whether it's a finite or an additional extension is optional. I only would like to see that this one time, or this be extended to 180 days so they have time to complete what they're working on now. So, Ms. Robinson, how's best to handle this? I don't care whether it's a one-time extension or it's just an extension for 180 days. So do we need to do 2 votes, or how do we
No,
wrap this up?
We have an amendment, and we've had a friendly amendment to change it. So we vote now on, the city clerk, would you read the amendment that we are voting on?
The motion is to just extend 180 days.
That's it. Okay, that is the amendment, unless there's a need to change it. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor of extending the, I'm sorry, Councilman?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. That was the friendly amendment or the amendment?
That is the amendment. We've agreed what the amendment is.
Okay,
The
did he
amendment is
not?
180 days.
And he didn't say friendly?
It does include the friendly amendment.
Can you read that back? What are we voting on?
She just read, we're voting on extending the contract, an extension of 180 days for the downtown plaza.
So it doesn't say friendly?
It would be a friendly plaza, though.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say, we've agreed on what the amendment is.
I mean, one time. It doesn't say one time.
No, it does
That was
not.
the friendly amendment.
It does not say one time.
And so what's the friendly amendment?
It no longer says one time.
Okay.
Okay,
I think I got it.
okay. I know, we work together, don't we? All right. We're together on this now. We're voting to extend this with 180 days, but it isn't a one-time only. So it can be extended. Are we in agreement? All right. All those in favor, vote yes. Opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
We have 6 yes.
6
Clear,
have-
Ortiz, Shum, and Harmon voting no.
All right. We have 6 voting yes. So the amendment passes. It'd be appropriate to have a motion to approve the extension as amended. Mr. Jensen.
So moved.
There's a second. Deputy Mayor Diaz seconds. Discussion. All those in favor vote yes. Opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
We have 6 yes, Clear, Ortiz, Shum, and Harmon voting no.
6 having voted yes, the extension is approved as amended. We go to item F. The clerk would read.
F is consideration of an extension of time for submission of transient guest tax development agreement for the historic Jayhawk Theater.
Okay, have that before us. Deputy Mayor Diaz moves to approve the request for extension. Second. Councilwoman Schwartz seconds. Is there a discussion? Is there going to be Councilman Jensen?
I cannot vote on this because I'm a member of the board, so I'll be abstaining. However, I would hope that you all would extend them the same 180-day one-time extension that the other groups got. Thank you.
So move.
Is there such a...
So move.
So Councilman Hiller has moved a 180-day extension, and we want, is there?
One time.
A one-time only. Councilman Schwartz seconds. Discussion. If we have a person signed to speak on this, Jeff Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council, Jeff Carson with the Jayhawk Theater. I have no issues with this extension, and I'm confident that we'll be able to come in under the wire. So,
Are there questions for Mr. Carson? Seeing none, thank you. And a discussion on the amendment for 180 days, one time only. Seeing none, all those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no. I vote yes.
Mr. Shum.
It still isn't, you'll have to, would you mind stating it, or do you make it mine?
We have 7 yes, Shum and Jensen abstaining. Mr. Harmon voted no.
7 having voted yes, the amendment is approved. Now it'd be appropriate to have a motion for the extension as amended. Deputy Mayor DeLisra so moves. Is there a second? Councilwoman Schwartz seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 8 yes, Harmon voting no, and Jensen abstaining.
Okay, we have 8 voting yes. The request for extension is approved. Council members, I suggest we take about a 10-minute break, sort of refresh ourselves. This completes the action items, and then we will begin the non-action items, the discussion issues.